Aaron, can you guys hear me in the room? Looks like Janet can hear me. Hmm.
John, I think they muted themselves for
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm just wondering if they can actually hear us.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no,
maybe.
Aaron. Okay. Yeah, there's a
Aaron
thumbs
just
up from
raised her
Aaron.
hand.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, you can hear us, right? Okay.
Now we
Yeah,
can.
just muted because we were a few minutes early. It was people shuffling in. John, do you want to screen share or do you want me to?
I will. Then I don't
Okay.
have to, if it's all right, then I don't have to keep telling you to advance the slide or whatever.
That'd be perfect.
I don't think I'd say shuffling into the senior center, that can be seen as a insulting to the senior citizen. Well, it could be high speed. Like high speed shuffling, yeah, it might. Okay. Like me. Understand.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. Shall we get started?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone, to this public hearing. Yeah. I'd like to call the meeting to order for this July 11th, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we just really have one item on the agenda tonight, and that is the Plan of Conservation and Development. Happy to see a few people here. We've had some comments come in, even I think up to about 5 o'clock this afternoon, which obviously we haven't read, but we will take them into account. So Erin, would you like to go ahead and read the legal notice for this public hearing?
Yes, Madam Chair. Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 11th, 2024, beginning at 7 p.m. in the cafe at the Madison Senior Center, 29 Bradley Road, Madison, Connecticut, 06443. This is a hybrid meeting and attendees may also join via Zoom webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information below. The webinar ID is 915-8196-6735. The password is 452138 and the call-in number is 646-558-8656. The commission will be presenting the draft 2024 Plan of Conservation and Development and entertaining public comment on the document. Copy of the draft Plan of Conservation and Development is available for inspection in the Land Use Office and on the Town of Madison website. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are also posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. All written correspondence can be submitted to the Land Use Department via email to landuse@madisonct.org. Dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated at Madison, Connecticut, is 17th day of June, 2024. Carol Snow, Chair.
Thank you, Erin. Tonight we have as our commissioners Jeff Downs to my left, John Morgan, Bob O'Connor, Andy Rubin, Bob Reinhardt, and Janet Peckinpah is attending via Zoom. And could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Jeff, thank you. Second, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so we'll jump right into the public hearing. Also present with us tonight is John Guskowski of Tyche Planning and Policy Group, who will be giving a PowerPoint presentation summarizing the process and the result of our plan of conservation and development. Over to you, John.
Okay. Thank you. So hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, and hopefully that looks like a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay, great. So as Chairman Snow noted, my name is John Guskowski. I'm a planning consultant with Tyche Planning and Policy Group, and I've had the pleasure of working with this commission and staff on the update to Madison's 2024 to 2034 Plan of Conservation and Development. It's a fairly dense and detailed plan. I'm not going to go through it page by page, but we're going to present this evening sort of an overview of what a plan of conservation and development is, what Madison's process was, and some of the major themes and actions developed in the plan. A plan of conservation and development itself is a statutorily required document. The state of Connecticut statutes require every municipality at least every 10 years to create and update a plan of conservation and development, which is a master plan that is the creature of the Planning Commission. In most towns in Connecticut, the Planning Commission is merged with the Zoning Commission, but those are actually two separate functions, planning and zoning. And the Plan of Conservation and Development is the responsibility and charge of the Planning Commission. Again, the state requires this plan to be updated every 10 years and is required to consider a number of things, both state and regional plans, which are master plans, issues of housing, health, recreation, social services, utilities, safety, transportation, and communications. We need to look at affordable housing particularly, and are there clustered or housing patterns other than traditional development, energy efficiency, energy conservation, protection and preservation of green spaces and conservation, agriculture, drinking water supplies, and then the physical, social, economic, and governmental conditions of the community. So this is actually a short version of a very, very long list of items that a plan of conservation and development both can and could include. But it is meant to be, as it's called, a planning document meant to guide the growth and preservation efforts across a variety of sectors within a community over the course of a decade. And the last plan in Madison was adopted in 2013, expired late last fall, 2023, and the town has been obviously working for the last year and a half or so in updating it. So we're just slightly behind, but this is not, we're not running afoul of the state in this case. Some of the ways that a plan of conservation and development are used at a municipal level, statutorily, it is required that any municipal improvements, including major construction projects, extensions of roads, sewer lines, water lines, acquisition of new property, construction of new municipal facilities, and other municipal investments, as well as disposition or sales of property, have to be reviewed by the Planning Commission with full consideration of the Plan of Conservation and Development. So essentially, the Planning Commission is required to set broad policy, broad goals for the community, and then every subsequent thing that the municipality does to act upon those goals, or to act in a municipal investment standpoint, has to be compared to the Plan of Conservation and Development for consistency. That is a statutory requirement. The next way that a Plan of Conservation and Development is used is basically providing support, providing administrative and organizational support for municipal investments, grant applications, and that sort of thing. And so essentially when the town is seeking state funding, perhaps for acquisition of open space, for construction of a school, for expansion of recreation facilities or water lines, and is seeking state or federal funding, most often there is some statement that, or some question that, does this funding request, does this municipal investment reflect the goals of the Plan of Conservation and Development? So that document can provide that support. On a more granular level, the Planning and Zoning Commission uses this frequently for reviewing and assessing proposed zoning regulation amendments. Ideally, the Plan of Conservation and Development sets the broad framework of goals, And then it is the job of the zoning regulations to make those goals and make that implementation happen on the ground. And the major tool that planning and zoning has to do that is zoning regulations. So for instance, if the town is looking for, increased housing density in a certain area, or, more environmental safeguards in a certain area, it would be up to the zoning regulations to deliver that in terms of its actual written policy. And so anytime the town is going to, or the Planning and Zoning Commission specifically, is going to take a look at a zoning amendment, it needs to say, does this zoning amendment deliver upon the goals of the plan of conservation and development? And so it is used in that way. And then finally, ideally, it is the roadmap for the next decade. It is a statement, not only of goals, but of actual specific items that the town, or the actions that the town should take to basically get from where it is today to the point in the future that it identifies as being the goals. We want to be a friendlier community, a more green community, a more active community, a more economically aggressive community. Whatever those things are, should be reflected in the plan of conservation and development and set broad policy for the municipality going forward. There is, however, aside from the very long list of things that a town must consider in developing and writing their plan of conservation and development, there really isn't a single process or format for developing that. Every municipality is essentially on their own to develop their methods for going after the development of the plan. So in the case of Madison, again, we've been working on this for, I think, a little over a year and a half. Was led by the Planning and Zoning Commission committee as a whole. We met monthly at the first Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of the month to talk about this and to talk through goals, to talk through actions, to hear different stakeholders. And so it was led by a committee of the whole, as well as Aaron Mannix as the town planner and the consulting team led by myself. We went through a long process of reviewing what exists now, which is to say the 2013 Plan of Conservation and Development. We went through the long list of goals and actions of that and basically weeded out items that had been accomplished, items that were still pending, but perhaps weren't as relevant for one reason or another, or things that were still relevant and as yet undone that were sort of needed to be carried forward into the next plan. We took a look at how the town has changed demographically from its population, from its housing, from its economic standpoint, and what that meant for looking towards the future. Is Madison aging? Is Madison becoming more expensive to live in? Those sorts of things, and what the implications were for the plan. We took a look at both the state plan, the State Conservation and Development Policies Plan, which has 6 responsible growth principles that sort of are meant to guide state policy, but also coordinate with policy at a local level, as well as the regional plan of conservation and development with our South Central Region Council of Governments based in North Haven, and to basically coordinate to make sure that largely the town is on the same page in terms of its broad goals as those 2 plans. There were several elements of public outreach and engagement that took place over the last couple of years. The first was a very extensive public opinion survey done by the town's Affordable Housing Committee and the Development of Affordable Housing Plan back in 2022. There was a survey that I believe had over 800 responses, which for a town of Madison size is quite an extraordinary response to a survey, as well as the strategic planning process, which happened over the last year or so, year and a half, that was managed by the Board of Selectmen. And they did an extensive public outreach process that this commission contributed to and threw in several questions that would be relevant to the plan of conservation and development. And the results of those surveys, that public input was incorporated into the development of the plan. We also looked at existing town plans, things like the Water Pollution Control Authority plan, Parks Management plan, sidewalks plan, or bike and pedestrian plans, as well as identifying plans that did not yet exist, like an open space acquisition plan we also looked at the updated natural hazards mitigation plan to sort of take a look at our storm resiliency and some of those issues. And then we did public outreach, as I noted. We worked with town staff, particularly those subject matter experts, the folks in Parks and Rec, the folks in Public Works, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Education, as well as advocacy groups, the land trusts and conservation groups, the bike walk coalitions, economic development commissions, and basically to all of these various stakeholder groups who are actively engaged in talking about the future of the community. And all of those were considered, and many of them were brought into Planning and Zoning Commission meetings for their input, for their expertise. So we also looked, as I said, we looked at the demographics, and we're not going to go through that whole analysis, but a couple of the key factors that we took a look at is by and large, Madison's population is fairly stable. I mean, this shows a somewhat, moderate decline, but basically between 2010 and 2020, Madison's population was within, a couple hundred people. There was a little bit of a drop off in 2020, and the town is projected, again, this is not, locked in stone, but looking forward about 15 years, the town is looking to continue to decline slightly in population. It has significant older population. 50 plus is, the 45 plus is basically 70% of the population. Is that my number on that right? I'm sorry, 57% is over 45, 23% of the total population is 65 and older. But Madison, unlike a lot of its cohort communities, has still a significant younger population, where a full quarter of the population is 19 years or younger. So Madison is, I think, relatively stable population relative to a number of its peers, and because broader trends in Connecticut is generally population decline and aging, and Madison is somewhat more stable than that. And so, unlike some communities, Madison, again, the demographic projections indicate that while Madison, like other communities, are aging, and we are looking to see a slight uptick of 65 plus population, it's not the same level or drama of sort of a senior explosion that a number of other communities, like for instance, Old Saybrook, a couple of towns to the east, is looking at. And so, in looking at some of those demographic changes, not many adjustments necessarily need to be made in terms of town policy about, changing its school alignment or distribution or its senior services. Again, because over the next 10 to 15 years, populations aren't expected to change that much. And getting back to process a little bit, thanks to a lot of work by a number of the key commissioners on the Planning and Zoning Commission, we structured this plan to be divided up between goals, which again are broad overarching themes to guide the town that span objectives and span sectors. Getting a little bit more granular is policies, which again are frameworks which are meant to guide the decisions about the different visions and goals. And then finally, the specific implementation strategies. And these are the actual active action items, sort of the specific to-do list, the paint by numbers that will help the community get from its broad goals through its policies to the actual implementation of what it means to do over the next year. So that's the broad framework. We had a lot of conversation about what's the vision for Madison. In sort of a single statement, what do we want Madison to be over the next decade? And I dislike reading directly from PowerPoints, but I think this is important. It's not a very long vision, and it's important to hear. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. So Madison's vision was broken up into 3 chunks, structured in we envision statements. So we envision a Madison that provides economic, educational, housing, cultural, recreational, and civic opportunities that establish a high and sustainable quality of life. We envision community growth that welcomes new residents, encourages broad participation, and safeguards the integrity of our natural and cultural resources through sustainable conservation. We envision civic and private investment that acknowledges and plans for a changing climate and the need for increased equity for current and future residents. So that, again, that's a very broad statement, but it by some of the words you can tell that there are sort of important themes that are going to be carried through this plan. Words like sustainable and resilient. And specifically, we split up these core themes into 3 pairs of core themes. The first being vitality and connectivity. That have to do with the vitality is somewhat ethereal. It's a feeling, but it is about the way that the community engages in public events, civic, recreational, commercial activities that sort of demonstrate activity, life, connectedness, and then the connectivity part of it is the bonds, the community bonds, the interpersonal bonds, but also the connectivity with our roads, our sidewalks, our infrastructure, our telecommunications, social networks, and all of this is part of being part of Madison. So vitality and connectivity was the first of the paired themes. Second being resilience and sustainability. And so just as connectivity is both a real tangible thing and a metaphorical thing, resilience can be the same thing. Resilience is not only the community's attitude and the community's ability to sort of prepare for and recover, but it's also our physical, how are our roads, are our houses, are our beaches, are our salt marshes, are they ready for the coming decade of climate activity, of storms, of economic shifts, of the next pandemic? Are we prepared? Are we resilient? And sustainable. And sustainability is different from resilience, even though it's frequently used together. But sustainable is basically refers to the ability of our community to provide for the needs of the present without sacrificing our ability to provide for the needs of the future. And it has an economic component, it has a social component, and it has an environmental component. And each of those things must be considered when the community is making decisions about its investments, about its actions, about land that it develops or land that it preserves, or the way that it proceeds in its policies. And then the last of the paired themes were opportunity and growth. And these are, again, sort of more forward-looking, looking for where is the town going from here, and being open to new residents, being having opportunity not only for newer residents, but current residents to have places to be, have places to live, have places to work through the entire arc of life cycles. And similarly in growth, Madison's population must grow, Madison's economy must grow, but grow in a way that does not compromise our abilities in the future, and to encourage and regulate this in a way that meets the needs and the character and the framework of Madison. So those are the 3 paired themes. And so when we took those paired themes and came up with 3 goal statements that reflect the vision and are meant to carry from the vision to the policies. So the first goal is that Madison is a community that exhibits high vitality and connects people to each other, to our history, and to the natural resources around us. So in that first goal, you can see the connectivity and the vitality. In the second goal, Madison is a community that works at sustaining a high quality of life for all and is resilient in the face of current and future challenges. So there you see the resilience, the sustainability. And the third goal is Madison is a community that is growing responsibly and offers all residents the opportunity to participate in that growth. And so there you see the growth and the opportunity reflected in these goals. So then those goals are migrated then to policies, and we split out 7 specific policies for Madison, which are again intended to guide growth and intend to guide decision making, not only on the Planning and Zoning Commission, but the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, the various entities, even private entities looking to develop or grow in Madison into the future. The first policy, and again, I'm going to go ahead and read these because these are very carefully structured and are really the backbone of this plan. So policy A is to create an accessible community that fosters easy connections among residents for gatherings, shopping, working, recreation, dining, and relaxing. So again, what we see here are, some of those common themes of connectivity, community growth. Policy B is enhance connections to nature in Madison and position the town's natural resources as an attraction. So this also has themes of growth. It has themes of preservation, of resilience. Policy C is preserve and promote Madison's historic and cultural landmarks, public and private. And then again, it's about respecting the past. It's about being sustainable and conserving. Policy D is improve the sustainability of our community's natural resources, public and private. And again, that would include our forest lands, our farmlands, our shorelands, and to make sure that the changes we make and the ways we grow do not compromise the ability of those natural resources to function and to thrive into the future. Policy E is to prepare our community to be resilient in the face of climate change and future economic and environmental challenges. Again, the themes of resilience, reflecting that we're talking about a changing climate, environmental challenges, storm frequency, as well as economic growth. Policy F is promote the expansion of commercial and retail businesses that are appropriate for the town. Again, growth and opportunity, but with a reflection on the sense of what Madison is and what Madison wants to continue to be. The final policy is diversify Madison's housing supply to meet the needs of households with a range of incomes, family sizes, and ages. And again, that's growth and opportunity with a reflection that Madison has become increasingly challenging for young families, for downsizing retirees, for people of limited means to find a place in Madison. And it's important to avoid becoming a sort of an elite residential monoculture and encourage a much broader diversity of residents and housing opportunities in town. So those are the 7 policies. Now the type is about to get a little bit smaller here, and I won't expect everyone to read this, but I wanted to show that those were the 7 policies, and then each of the policies is broken out, again, A through F. A, B, C, D, E, F. Yes. No, 7, E through G. That each of these policies has actions. These actions are the implementation strategies for the community to basically deliver upon the themes and the vision that we discussed at the beginning. So again, I won't read these completely, but again, we're taking policy A, which refers to an accessible community that fosters connections. Some of the policies in there are creating a downtown development plan, including the entire downtown village district, looking at balancing commercial and residential, protecting and public access, and looking at the vision study for Bradley Road. Creating a multimodal transportation master plan, which incorporates pedestrian, bicycle, trains, cars, and other modes, with some details about what that should include and who should be involved. And then updating and implementing the beach and recreation facility master plan, considering a number of things. And so you see, we're getting into far, far more detail about here's the policy, here's how we're going to get to the policy in a fair amount of detail going forward. And we did the same thing, breaking down each of the policies to specific action items. So preserving and promoting Madison's historic and cultural landmarks, deal with recommending a long-range preservation plan for Madison, promoting Madison's history, working with the Historical Society and the schools, publicizing resource preservation on residential and commercial properties, looking at scenic roads and vistas and protecting those things. So again, each of those policies has this sort of roadmap for going forward. And as is very often the case, the master plan, the plan of conservation and development, recommends a lot of the development of a lot of littler plans, a water pollution control plan, a parks and rec plan, a historic preservation plan that cannot, for reasons of time and space, all be incorporated into this single document, but that basically goes out and delegates and says, yes, we need to update these additional plans to deliver them upon the larger goals that we established. And again, so in each of the policies has a series of actions. And then the way that we turn this into delivering upon this is implementation. So in addition to delineating what those actions are in following each of the policies, we've created an implementation matrix. And this essentially should be the thing that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Selectmen reference most often, because this is essentially the CliffsNotes version. It is the index of the Plan of Conservation and Development that lists all of the policies and the specific action items. And it not only does that, but it goes as far as saying, okay, in the first policy, first action, it's creating a downtown development plan. Who's responsible for that? The lead entity is Economic Development Commission. They should be the ones. And so this is not about planning and zoning doing everything. But in this case, planning and zoning is an important partner entity with economic development. So is wetlands and watercourses. So is WPCA, which is the Water Pollution Control Authority, and town staff. Those are all the entities that should be involved in this very, very important action step of the downtown village plan. And we've also assigned it a priority, high, moderate, and low, which basically corresponds to high priority is something that should be initiated, if not completed, within the first couple of years, first year or two of the plan. Moderate is still an important priority, but something that could be attenuated a little bit, could be taken on during some of the out years of the Plan of Conservation and Development, years 3 through 6 or something like that. And so in the implementation plan, each of those specific action steps that break down the policies into these bite-sized step-by-steps are given an entity and a priority for tracking purposes. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, in revisiting this, or the Board of Selectmen in looking at public investments for the next year or for the next couple of years, can look at the Plan of Conservation and Development and say, okay, which items are our responsibility? What's the priority? And we'll give essentially the marching orders or the work plan, ideally, for the next 10 years by entity: Board of Selectmen, Beach and Rec Commission, the Conservation Commission, Planning and Zoning, Public Works, WPCA. Each of those entities has responsibilities to deliver upon the goals of this plan. So that is the very broad overview. There's a lot of detail, particularly in the action items, that I would encourage people. Hopefully people have gotten a chance to look at this online or in person. But that is the goal. And it is the responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Commission, following a public hearing, which is being initiated tonight, to review and adopt the plan. And hopefully following public input, this plan or something very close to it will be adopted. And I'm happy to take questions now. And my understanding is that this hearing may remain open. So people are more than welcome to contact myself or perhaps better Aaron Mannix on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission to receive input or comments on the Plan of Conservation and Development. So I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, John. I also want to just take a couple minutes to add to that a little bit and say we started working on this in the fall of 2022, I believe it was. And then as new commissioners came on board, it was great to have new challenges. So I want to say thank you to all the commissioners for all the input, as well as to stakeholders and community response, because we couldn't do it without everyone putting all our heads together. And it's really exciting to see this plan coming to fruition. I also want to say that this afternoon I attended the Regional Planning Commission for South Central Connecticut, and the POCD was approved with flying colors. It sailed right through, no objections to it, and their response was that they considered it a robust plan, and that it is well aligned with the regional plan of conservation and development. So that was good news to get that this afternoon. So I think with that, unless anyone else wants to add anything, we should open it up for discussion and questions and comments. Good?
Yes, see you.
Yes, Madam Chair, just want to highlight to the commission that we did receive some written correspondence as well. Some folks are here in attendance. We have some comments from various boards and commissions, including the Conservation Commission, the Coastal Resiliency Commission, the Affordable Housing Committee, the Facilities Committee, and as well as you said, the Regional Planning Commission for our Council of Governments. We also received individual written comments from Amy Thomas, Alex Province, and James Nordgren, some of which I see are in attendance here this evening. So may or may not be reading that, so that those comments can either be read into the record this evening, can be shared with you. It was requested again by the Board of Selectmen. They will be meeting later this month to provide some feedback to the commission as well. So they did ask if it was at all possible to hold the hearing open until your August, early August. I think that's actually August 1st.
Yeah, I think it is.
To allow for the comments to be received.
Great, thank you.
And we have, I don't know, it's fairly quiet in here, and so if people, if everyone can hear and folks attending via Zoom can hear, we don't have to use the microphones, but if anyone happens to be soft-spoken or would like to use a microphone.
Great, and you can see Erin, who's attending via Zoom.
Yes,
Okay,
and
good.
so, yes, when
So
you're
when hands
ready,
are
we can
raised.
allow folks to raise their hands if they'd like to speak as well.
Great, okay. So, would like to respond to what we've just heard?
I'll say just an observation, a couple of things, and
If you could
I'm
identify
glad
yourself.
that there's feedback from the Conservation Commission. I'm hoping there's probably also feedback from the water pollution people who put that plan together. People who are interested in open space and the land trust people and the Shellfish Commission, because I think they're all vital to this community being a coastal town that we are. However,
Could I just ask
Can
you
you
to
identify-
identify yourself?
oh, sure, I'm Jane Scenario, 852 Boston Post Road.
Thanks, great.
So I'm really happy to hear that there was input, because when I read this plan, I know that there were hours of work put into this. And I think sometimes the process and the administration and the bureaucracy of having to put something like this together can sometimes get in our way. What did not ring clear to me was the voice of all those commissions that Erin just mentioned, and the scientists who might have something to say about this. Because when I read about the authors and the people that were involved in this, they all had development titles. So I just want to say the distillation of all of the data from all of the people who are there to protect our natural resources can get somewhat diluted in the process, and actually their input can get marginalized. Because this plan really doesn't put any safeguards or tell us anything specific about what's going to happen in Madison, what particular areas are going to be protected. And I know there's probably there are lots of presentations that are probably being given on this, but if it's not in this plan, then you know what, it's not known to the community. And you know, you can have meetings and whatever, you know, and post things like this. I actually had to ask my husband, where's that meeting again tonight? Blah, blah, blah. But I think there has to be a louder voice for the natural resources. And I say this in the thought process that, you know, there are things that are going on with regard to development that are great for our town, and we need that to support our economic vibrance. However, the natural resources are outlined here as a major attraction, and one of the things that we really want to protect. And I kind of feel like that's kind of got lost in the sauce in in this, because it is supposed to be a plan of conservation and development together. So the hooks seem to be on the development side, but I don't see the hooks so much on the conservation side. Or I'm not hearing that, and I feel like it's the voices of those people that Erin just mentioned, I feel are kind of getting diluted in some measure. So that was just an observation.
Thanks. It's funny because that was my criticism of the 2013 plan of conservation and development. And I sat in this very room doing this process, whatever, 10 or more years ago. And it, it is, I think we tried to strike a balance. There's a list of the stakeholders that we reached out to. And not everyone responded, but most did. And so we'll definitely keep that in mind. If you have any specific things, I think that you can go through and you can find goals and policies that address natural resources for sure. We tried to balance it. Is it equal? I don't know. We tailored it to what we think Madison has and needs. And
Definitely a lot of
look
work.
ahead for-
Definitely a lot of work, and believe me, you guys spend hours, and I realize that. It's just that if we're going into a period where we're gonna be getting more storms, and the climate is changing, and I don't see anything here that says, hey, there was a scientist who said, hey, guess what? Or maybe it's time for the town to hire an environmental consultant to add to this.
Would you like to speak?
Yeah, just a couple of things. My name's Walter Welsh, and I'm at Grove Avenue in Madison. I'm on the Coastal Resiliency Commission. So we have talked to this commission and we're looking at all the work they do. It's so hard to put these things in a way that covers everything, but the presentation is quite good, quite clear to follow. We had a coastal resiliency plan was done in 2016, the town knows, and this plan is telling us to update that coastal resiliency plan. And the town charter recently approved a new board, which is a combination of coastal resiliency and the flood and erosion control board. It's going to be flood erosion and control and climate resiliency. Those words, that will be what the new board is when it's adopted by the town soon. And they got all kind of that is to take a look at the 2016 plan, which is really coastal, and look at the whole town from a point of view of planning for climate change. And that will be done with some outside experts. And Erin says we started on that, some help from the state, right? Erin, you might just describe what they're going to do.
Yes, we have received funding through Connecticut Sea Grant, and we do have an environmental consultant on board as well as planning consultant. We'll be working over the next year to create a climate resiliency plan with the town through this grant funding.
So it ties into what they're doing, but it is, if you think about this, it's to make this all work. You've got the plan, and then you've got the various boards that have the power, specifically this one, that can make some of those important changes. Flood and erosion control and climate will have something to do, there's inland wetlands. Also, all of these boards will be working anyway, even without this plan, but this plan is a guideline for where they should go.
Right.
Hi, Fran Brady, 108 Genesee Lane, up in North Madison. Like the previous speaker, my initial impressions of this work is, of the significant work, is very positive. A lot of work about involvement and getting people involved. But similarly, I also felt a disproportionate emphasis on certain things. A quick point: the economic versus the natural. On the economic side, data was used just now to show population growth was at best stable, at worst projected to go down. Many of the economic policies, though, verbalize growth. I can understand stable resiliency, stable, but growth specifically. So that to me is like a disconnect from the data. If there's going to be a large emphasis on growth, and our population is going to be stable or going down, I just want to make that point. I'm here because of the natural side. Even on the natural side, I see a discrepancy, disproportionate amount of focus, and not unwarranted focus on everything coastal, water-based pollution, water pollution, Flood and erosion control, shellfish commission. Yes, there's inland wetlands covers everything, a lot of things, but again, the feeling I got was, and you know why I'm here. I'm the co-founder of Mad for Trees. I don't feel the love for the trees. And ladies and gentlemen, there may be 3 beaches in Madison. There may be 2 major rivers and a dozen little creeks, but guess what? There are over 2 million trees. And that could mean, oh, that we can get rid of, we don't have to worry about it, we got 2 million, we got 1,900,000 left. No, it means that they're important in terms of their number and acreage. And when you look at your maps, green is the biggest component. Green north of Green Hill Road is important. Again, the impression I get from reading the 100 pages is that, man, we are ready to do what we can to protect the shoreline, which is great. But I'm not getting a warm fuzzy feeling about specifics, actions and goals, actions specifically regarding the protection and the replenishment of not just forest. That is an antiquated word. Today, look up in we're using state policies, right? State papers talk about how to take action against climate change. They talk about tree canopy. We should be using today's lingo. And because I'll end it here, because when it boils down to how you're going to implement, you're going to need to have people on the ground, more people on the ground. Today's people on the ground can't handle the 2 million trees we got today. We don't handle them at all proactively. The wording in there says we will increase active management. Increase. We don't do anything today, really, in my humble opinion.
It's easy to beat that then.
Well, it's a goal to increase. That's a good point. Thank you.
Well, I would like to encourage both of you, if you have specific,
Well, here it is. My specific thing is, and let me wrap on this, is the tree ordinance. We need regulation. We need to have in that document that we are going to have not Bower Park Commission, not the Bower Park Committee or Rockland Preserve creating a forest plan for their forest. No, we need compensate. We need a thing that covers the town
yeah,
with educated volunteers that this is their priority, is the tree canopy plan, not the Bower Park Forest plan. I think that because why? And I'm not just saying it because I think it's a good idea, or that the state says it's a good idea. I'm saying because many towns around us do it that way. Guilford, Clinton, Essex, even the borough of Madison, New Jersey, does it this way.
Which is a nice town, by the way.
It is nice town, but they have a body dedicated to this, which does not get mentioned, which I think it should be. As you said, if it's not mentioned, it ain't gonna happen. Please mention Tree Advisory Committee as the body that will help guide this. Where it's gonna be, is it part of Conservation Commission? Maybe, or is it independent? Better. That's how the other towns do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thanks. I mean, you'll notice that in many of our policies, we start off with doing a plan, to get an overview, to quantify it, to qualify it, but, with or without outside consultants or volunteers. Moving forward though in that regard, and John Gostowski, you have your hand up?
I do. I just had I wanted to respond and apologize a little bit about some of the phrasing I had about the growth element, but I can make that point after if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Tom Burl, 75 Ridge Road. I also, as Fran had mentioned, saw a disconnect in terms of growth. And again, great job on the plan. It's a ton of work, I know, to pull all this stuff together. But there is a lot of verbiage around growth within the plan. But it doesn't match the data relative to population decline. And I think that that has to get better tightened up. Because there are some implications for the town, given a declining population. And then also linkage to affordability long term. You have a growing budget, the budget's not gonna shrink, it's gonna continue to grow. But if you don't have growth, that increase is going to be driven down to the existing population, right? We benefited for years from growth. Increased units of housing absorb those budget increases. We don't have that anymore. And so the town, in fact, will get less affordable versus more affordable. Unless we have a plan to address that. So it's either, the plan is to, you have to downsize and reduce budgets significantly. Or you have to figure out how you gain increased units. So that you can spread the tax base around. That's one issue. One of the things that I've thought for years and been concerned about is with coastal resiliency. There's been a discussion around septic for years. And probably not even a discussion, more words that are on paper. But Southwood Post Road, increasing sea level rise is going to take all of those septic systems and put them underwater. Unless we unless we have a real plan to implement a mitigation plan, i.e. sewers, etc., where we take that load off of Southwood Post Road and deal with it, we're also going to see property values decline if people that can't live because they don't live in the $2 million houses because they can't flush a toilet. Right, so those are just some things that you may want to emphasize a little bit in there, take a look at how you address those.
Thanks.
Madam Chair?
Sorry. I just have one other observation. I don't know what the resources of the town is to acquire funding from outside of Madison. I don't think we have somebody who is seeking monies on a proactive full-time job
On
basis.
staff.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of money that could come into the town if we had someone on a regular basis proactively looking for that money. And I say this from several standpoints to the, was it Tom's point of view about, if you were to, address a sewer infrastructure and or, affordable housing, both of which, states, often give money for those infrastructure projects. So I don't know, it's just another observation.
Karen, did you want to respond to that at all about the funding person? I'm also thinking that I think it was part of the strategic plan as well.
Kristen Barkowski in the finance department is our grant coordinator. for this.
Is that like, she does that full time, that's all she does is look for monies or?
No. As with most municipal employees, we
I
wear
don't
multiple hats.
No, but they do a lot, and they are getting money.
Yeah,
Not the big buying that we
Yeah.
like, but they certainly plan, work from then on a new sort of, resiliency plan for the town with outside funding. And Aaron knows of many other places where we look for money. to Spend that thing, but it's sort of when you sort of have to look for it when it's out there and then you have to go for it. So I think towns are aware of this stuff, but they don't have the personnel working on it, right? It's part time.
It depends, sometimes it's through departments, sometimes it's through committees
Yeah.
seeking funding, in their related field.
When it gets-
Oftentimes it's, when there's a designated project that the town is looking for, we begin seeking
money for.
Appropriate funds for that, yes. I think the town has had several record years in obtaining outside funding, for the last couple of years, for whether it's the schools or the academy school or some brownfields, some municipal improvements, downtown center project, resiliency plans, things like that.
So we don't need a full-time person to do that. I mean, you
I don't
just-
think that's my decision to
Yeah,
make.
I'm just saying there's not-
That's a broader question of whether or not language regarding should be included in this particular plan.
I'm Laura Downs, 54 Quarry Ledge. I have some comments to make on behalf of myself, but I'm also here to represent the library. So I'll go do the library first. I'm a trustee of the library, and the Scranton Memorial Library is honored to be in your list of stakeholders. On the P O C D, when you did it before, there was a trustee who was on the committee who participated, and because you didn't do it that way this time, the library has not yet participated. So I just want to let you know that we're happy to be involved. The library is a private organization, and while the town provides significant funding, the employees work for the library corporation. Actually, the library is a beautiful example of everything you hope to accomplish in your P O C D. It is the cornerstone of the downtown district. It contributes directly to the quality of life of the people of Madison. It serves every generation. It's open to all, free for residents and visitors to the town. The library's mission is to improve the quality of life for all Madison residents by providing access to information, fostering lifelong educational and cultural learning, and cultivating relationships among our residents through the exchange of ideas. In fact, its tagline is, "Let us connect you." So the 2020 renovation and expansion was a successful public-private partnership. The project came in on time and on budget. The original library building was preserved and restored, and the entire building is accessible. The outdoor space includes chess tables on the patios, parking in the rear of the building, which is shared with the downtown. It's powered by geothermal and photovoltaic panels. And the library was quite involved with the town's strategic planning process. They hosted the focus groups. They provided hard copy surveys. There are a lot of people that go to the library because they don't have access online directly, so they need that hard copy. Unfortunately, a copy of this plan wasn't provided to the library, so if you're gonna hold the meeting open and we can get a copy there for the next couple of weeks, that'd be great. And when the plan is done, we would love to have a copy there. We have the 2013 plan there as well. So just a couple other things. Under policy C, you talk about Madison's history, and we would love to have the Scranton Memorial Library included through that promotion of the Madison's history. And on page 51, you actually have two pictures of the library in the plan. And on page 51, you use an old photo of the library pre-restoration. So we would, okay, we would love to provide you with a new photo, and I can send that wherever that needs to go. So thank you on behalf of the library. If I could just keep talking and talk on my own, I want to talk about diversity of housing. In your goal G, you say you want to diversify the housing supply in Madison for a range of incomes, family size, and ages. And that's great. But in fact, I have to tell you a story. Last summer in Superior Court, a developer's attorney, a woman you know well, stated to a judge that houses with a potential price of over $1 million was diversity of housing in Madison. I don't think that's what you mean in your plan. So I think you might want to change that language to actually say it. If you want to emphasize affordable or workforce housing, then say so. so that it isn't misconstrued. The second thing, that you referenced the Bradley Road Vision Study of 2005, that is not available on the town's website. It used to be, but it is not now.
We've been trying to get it too.
Yeah, I happened to print out a copy a few years ago, so I had it. It's got some interesting things in it. A couple of them are a little bit crazy, like the parking garage at Bradley Road.
Multi-story car park, yeah.
Yeah, that and the part that you want the buildings to be close to the sidewalk. You know, I think of the Hearth, that's close to the sidewalk, that doesn't do it for me. You know, I love the stores like Everthine and Robertson Madison and Slate, Willow and Birch, all who have used the older houses, and buildings on Wall Street, and I think those are successful buildings, businesses, so, anyway. And I guess I too am concerned about the development and the desire for more development downtown before you figured out the wastewater, the septic, and the effects on Long Island Sound. There's a sentence on page 68 that says, as for the built environment, the southern portion of Madison has public water provided. And north of I-9511 private drinking wells. The water's provided, but that's a little bit misleading because there are quite a few people who have wells south of 95 and south of the post road. So, you know, anyway, the water company just put out a map with a survey the other day, and it shows you can see those houses that are not connected at all. So anyway, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I have a process question. So I didn't go down my laundry list of specific, you know, paragraphs and wording that I wanted changed. I had sent that in April. Were you, was that part of the record?
Incorporate that, sure,
Is that part of the record, or do I need to go
Sure.
through that myself?
that's fine, you don't have to read through everything this evening, no,
But if I wrote and gave it to you. Do you
then it's
have it?
part of the record.
It's part of the record.
It's for the record.
Some of the things we came in today,
I
some of
actually
them,
rewrote the paragraphs, so the work is done.
I think it is paragraphs.
Why don't you resend it, just so we have it?
Yeah,
Right.
but
Well done.
I have the comments that will, after,
we take it into
Receiving
consideration, doesn't mean that we're
comments,
automatically going to rewrite. With the text that gets sent to us, but we certainly take it into
Right.
account and with bigger picture in mind, you know, sort of what's the whole document trying to do at this point? How specific can we get, how granular can we get, because we tried not to get too granular, we tried to keep it somewhat overarching as a master plan.
I took a lot of words out.
Yeah. Sure. We did too.
Yeah. The stakeholder definition, I'm surprised. Scranton Library is a stakeholder, but she's here defending getting more involved with the process. What's a stakeholder then?
Well, we don't have a definition of stakeholder, we have a list of the stakeholders we reached out to. And I think we did 2 rounds of that even, Erin, if I'm right, you know, when we were sort of getting started, we reached out to everyone and said, please send us your ideas, your thoughts, your input, your values, you know, what you want to see included. And then when we got this document further along close to this draft, I think we sent it around again and said, you know, let us know what you think. We need your feedback to make it a stronger document. So, and now we're here, which is a more formal public hearing to get further input.
Fran, I can say something very quickly. Stakeholder as a word has an interesting background. The initial word meant these are the people who held the stakes at the end of a horse race. They were people who had no bets or no concern about the outcome. They were the stakeholders. Now, over time, the definition has changed 180 to be people who have some money in the game or care about it. So in reality, in my understanding, there's no like legal definition. If you care, you are a stakeholder because you define yourself as a stakeholder. Is that fair?
Definition, which I-
Yeah.
Yeah. I am John Bean, 104 Lovers Lane. I'm also chair of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee in town. So I can kind of speak for myself and for the committee with some of this. And then some of this is probably on the record then, because we've shared it with you, right, Aaron? But I'll just repeat it just for what it is, but in the spirit of kind of strengthening this document, which I have personally not read many POCDs, so this is quite comprehensive. I can tell a lot of work went into it. I think photos are fabulous, even the old one. But but you know, so I'm coming with the perspective from people that ride bikes and walk around town or the beaches or want to go to school and things like that. In one section, there are plans and studies, and this was the bit of feedback we shared. Our committee has conducted several road safety assessments with a program through UConn. It's a state program, and we provided and published detailed reports for these on the town's website. So these are for the shoreline area, safe routes to school in town here, and then Route 1 Hamnasset to the Clinton town line, the downtown area. And then we just recently did one from the Polson Middle School, past the new school down to, I forget the name of the road, but down past Mungertown through that area down there. So that should be posted pretty soon. So, you know, we would suggest that if those could be included in the section, I believe it's page 41 and 42, for the plans and studies on the built environment, that would be one area we'd love to see. The other area that we noticed as a committee was kind of a lack of, and there is some, so don't get me wrong, there is a lot of discussion about connectivity and ways to do that throughout the town, but we felt there was a lack of discussion about how the town was going to come forward with things like sidewalks. So we looked around to see what other towns were doing, and neighboring town in Guilford, in their POCD, we saw some interesting things that we wanted to share with the group tonight. But in theirs, they basically have a draft that's directing the town to ensure that sidewalks would be included along those principal byways that were part of new or redevelopment. And we thought that was a great consideration for anything that was approved through planning and zoning. You know, looking at this, we feel it was applicable to, I believe it's section 5, policy A. So that would be on page 52. And this is one that our committee has also noted as it's a high priority, and we're a partner entity. So we'll be also working on this. But there are quite a few bullets there for implementation and then supporting implementation bullets. One that we came up with, and it's certainly, I'm not one to write for this, but we said basically these considerations, right? Those bullet points are just considerations. It would be to consider zoning regulations that encourage development or redevelopment of properties to include sidewalks along principal byways where the infrastructure could support more density and provide enhanced walking opportunities. A lot of that was borrowed from Guilford. We also reached out to Connecticut Bike and Pedestrians Executive Director, and they had some boilerplate language for POCDs, and there was many towns throughout the state that offered similar language with relation to new and redevelopment. So I just wanted to raise that point, and that would be our suggestion. Certainly it would demonstrate, you know, the town's commitment to ensuring that accessibility is available for everybody, and maybe help increase our network. We're certainly lacking in a lot of areas there. So thank you.
Thanks, that's really helpful.
Thank you.
Heather.
Heather Crawford, Chair of the Conservation Commission, 553 Summer Hill Road. I'll come over here so that not everybody has to turn around. We did submit a letter. I apologize for it only getting in today, but I will just summarize the points and not go through the on page 31 things. But one of
overall, when our commission met and talked about it, we said, there's a lot of really good stuff in here, but to, echo some of the words, we were concerned as the Conservation Commission that even in the section that talked about natural resources, the very second section said as Madison continues to grow and develop. And that sort of like was, like bing. If we are looking to be conservation and development, we should not, in the natural resources section, be assuming that we're just growing. And I understand the issues with tax bases and all those things, but and as I say, there are certain sections of town where we really can't sustain any more growth, but are still very valued by developers, and so that's where a lot of the pressure is. South of Post Road, south of 95, it's just the natural resources in the area are so fragile and already so damaged or encroached upon that they just need to be protected, not given if we consider growing in this area. There are just some areas of town where we need to really look at not growing, which I then addressed it was in the policy where we recommend that the town should officially start exploring ways to facilitate abandoning properties in high hazard areas. And we weren't clear on whether there was another one where we talked about limiting vulnerable development. We weren't sure if that was meant to just purchase undeveloped properties or if it was to purchase properties where there was damage. But anyway, so those two things may have worked together, details on the paper. But my strong feeling as somebody who studied coastal resources worked with the University of Connecticut on land use impact for 15 years is that Madison, and it needs to be done through the Plan of Conservation and Development, needs to acknowledge that climate change is impacting our most densely developed section of town and our most sensitive resource section of town, natural resource section of town. And we need to drill down and acknowledge that it's going to cause a lack of tax space. That tax base needs to be moved somehow to another section of town, and that this has got to be worked into our policies and regulations. Because if we don't do that, we're just pushing a snowball down the road. To coin a new sort of climate adaptive phrase. The other thing in terms of sustainability and resilience that we looked at was the fact that agriculture is in Madison's history. Agriculture, the corn is on our town seal for a reason, and yet the only area that agriculture is actually mentioned specifically in the town plan was a quote from the SCROG goal, that we should be providing locally grown food, recreation. Agriculture can provide locally grown food, recreation opportunities and contribute to the economy. But it's only listed in our plan draft as something that may be considered. The Conservation Commission's feeling was that, some may not consider agriculture a currently significant activity in the town of Madison. If we're going to be looking at resilience and sustainability, having access of local food growing opportunities is something that needs to be protected. So just saying, this farm is going out, somebody wants to put a subdivision here, why not? It's like, once you turn someplace into a subdivision, you're not growing corn again. So once you turn something into a waterfront, you are a hardcore waterfront, you are not allowing the marsh to migrate, which is another area that I looked at. Specifically, there was a section where you talk about protecting migration or supporting remediation and restoration of tidal wetlands. But if you don't plan for their future movement to go with the sea level rise, to go with the climate change, they're not going to have any place to go, and they're just going to push up against those seawalls and disappear. And there's sections in town where we are seeing this very clearly already. So let's see, and then trees. When we were looking at the prepare and protect our community for continuing climate challenges, we added that and I actually realized now that I'm looking at this, that I have my own typo in here. Instead, we recommend adding changes in land cover and tree canopy, even though I put land use. Because areas that have a tree canopy, whether there's development under them or not, are significantly more resilient and more sustainable than areas where we decided we're cutting everything down. And that the air, light, water, and noise pollution that are mentioned in the sentence are all byproducts of development that would be mitigated by protecting the existing natural resources. I think those are the points that I'd like to emphasize right here, but Erin will give you a copy that has all the page numbers. I also want to ask you that one of the things that we struggled with a little bit in putting this document together are how outdated models are. So whenever you hear of updated modeling that's being done, I hope you'll share it with everybody. I think it's one of the things that if we should be, that if we're not doing the 50 centimeters by 2050 hard plan, we are doing the town a disservice. Yeah, which is so. And I guess I also want to say at this point, this is a living document, so it can be updated, it can be improved upon in the next 10 years. We don't have to wait 10 years to write a new one, or, you know, we took quite a departure from the previous two. Yeah. And so we hope this will remain a living document. I agree, and I was involved in the 2013 developing that document, and I like this process. But the committees were actually useful for getting, I think, more of the feedback early on. And just one you were able to then build in, like the 2018 document on, and there were a variety that we say we did add in through the time. It's a living document, but there's just certain things where, like, again, I'm gonna go with, if we don't put it in, people go, oh yeah, well, they didn't want to bother with that. So thank you. Great. John Guskowski, are you still waiting patiently?
I am. Thank you. The thing I wanted to clarify, and I apologize for sort of glossing over this when I reviewed the demographic changes. I know a number of the folks this evening talked about sort of the disconnect between the idea of growth and the current projections, which are, you know, stable or possibly declining. I think a lot of the reason for the projected decline is twofold. It's specific to Madison. First is that household size is declining somewhat. So, you know, within the same number of housing units that we have, there are just fewer of us. You know, we have more 1- and 2-person households and fewer larger family units. And so, and the other factor is the slow rate of housing growth. You know, Madison isn't building new housing, and a lot of the, you know, our smaller households are then sort of diffusing, so far as they're staying in town, into the other existing households in the community, and we're not growing the population because in large part we're not growing our housing opportunities. And so there is a significant emphasis, and I think particularly in the affordable housing plan, which was adopted just about 2 years ago, to increase those housing opportunities that would not only create, you know, affordable housing opportunities for new families, but would also create affordable or alternative opportunities for people in currently larger, you know, 3, 4, 5 bedroom single family residences who are looking to, you know, downsize and retire into a smaller condo unit, a little townhouse unit, a retirement unit, and then make that prior house, that larger family house, available for the next generation of residents. So the trends are, you know, stability or slight decline of population. I think the large factor of that is the slow rate of growth of new housing opportunities. And so the policy changes that are recommended, particularly in the affordable housing plan, are a way to address that and grow the population, grow the economy by growing housing opportunities in town. So it's I think is a little less of a paradox than maybe initially perceived, and that's part of my fault for not properly explaining what we had meant. But the idea is we recognize that things are stagnant largely because it is hard to build, it is expensive to build, it is hard to get into Madison as a new resident. And some of the policy changes, policy recommendations of this plan and the affordable housing plan are meant to address that, to encourage more of that growth.
Hey, John.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm rolling again. So John, one of the things that might be an opportunity is to call out specifically that the challenge we're facing is a lack of growth. But we need growth, and here's how we're gonna get it. And it may be in there, but it may have gotten lost.
Yeah.
With we're growing, but we're not growing, but we need to.
It could be more explicit. There's a lot of throat clearing in the document, and it can get lost. But thank you.
See that.
Madam Chair,
Any comments on Zoom?
yes, James Norgren.
Good
Jim,
evening. Good evening, thank you. Just on John's comments just now, it would be wonderful if Madison could grow and buck the trend, but just to realize what you're up against, the entire Northeast United States has been losing population for years now as people move to the Sun Belt. And I'd also point out that that's a trend worldwide. All developing countries are seeing population growth stagnate or drop. So it'd be wonderful to think Madison could put up a lot of homes to attract people, but just be aware of what you're up against, gigantic demographic trends that have been going on for a decade or more. So I'd like to see how we can adapt to that. And it may mean downsizing in many ways. It may mean adaptive reuse of the buildings we do have rather than grow and hope people come here instead of migrating to cheaper areas in the South. My specific question is in the weeds here on policy D, improve sustainability of communities' natural resources. Number 2, support remediation, restoration of tidal wetlands. I see that for the first time in all the drafts, and we've been following this for a couple of years, for some reason, this important phrase has been dropped out, B, which says reduce nitrogen loading from septic systems to coastal marshes and Long Island Sound. And we heard a lot tonight from comments concerning problems with septics and rising sea level. And I note that the Connecticut statute had been updated. I think it's PA 2129 to specifically encourage all municipalities to design zoning regulations to reduce hypoxia on Long Island Sound. So we've heard tonight how important the coast is for us and coastal resilience. So my question is, was that a mistake to drop that line? It seems very, very important that be held in there. And as I point out, it's been in every draft through the final draft update in March. So reading this today, I was kind of shocked. Was there a reason? I didn't hear any discussion on why that important policy goal was taken out.
I'm not sure I can reconstruct what happened when, unless it was too detailed, maybe, so we thought.
I was going through that today, trying to remember when it changed. And I think the driver was to try to take it up a level, so it wasn't specific to doing that, but it was more specific to protecting water as a whole, just a broader agreement to whoever gets this assignment to say, take a look at everything that could go wrong and tell us how to protect what we got.
I would just add, if I could, if Scroggs was it for interrupting, if Scroggs was aware that we took out a goal to reduce nitrogen flowing into Long Island Sound, I don't think they would have approved this POCD as they did.
This draft went to the Regional Planning Commission.
No, it's okay. No, I mean, I get his point. And we were very specific before and then we made it more general.
Yeah, we did make. it
So
more
created
general.
lost in the interpretation of that, so we should look at that.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Aaron, other people on Zoom?
I don't see anyone else with their hand raised.
Okay, so this hearing remains open then until August first, is that?
Yes, so you can make a motion to hold that open. We can compile the information that was provided today, as well as the written communication that we've received. Add that into the document center commission to review and consider at your next meeting, and also to allow an opportunity for additional comments to both them.
And the board of selectmen to respond.
Yes.
Yeah. So could I have a motion? Oh, sorry.
So all these documents are accessible to the public?
Oh, yes, we'll link them onto the agendas and the
So there's like a
documents.
folder somewhere we go and find our own comments.
Yes.
Make sure it's
you-
there.
Yes, I'll put them.
Good question. Okay,
I'll move.
this is a motion to continue the public hearing
Until-
till August first.
Yes.
Okay, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Great, well, thank you all so much for coming out
Appreciate it.
and really, really good comments, we really appreciate them.
What a job.
And so,
It's hard.
would love it to be done, it's not done yet. It won't be done, so thanks for coming.
You still got just a couple. John, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Right, stuff's like.
Living documents. Commission may not be.
So if we could take our conversations into the other, the more items on
I printed this off, I'm not sure if I should get this there. I don't know, this was-
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one that I shared in our meeting.
Yes.
Awesome.
Hey, Janet, you still here?
It's very difficult to hear in this room for some reason, because so many people are talking at once, so I'm losing a lot of, no,
Most people are leaving.
not your fault.
So we'll just give it a quick minute.
Guys,
Heather,
Heather,
if I
can
can
you
have
guys?
conversations go outside because they're continuing.
There's a little bit more of our meeting.
Oh, well, I have to hear what it is.
You can stay, of course.
You're welcome to stay. Okay, so pending applications, 24-10, 6 Opening Hill Road. This will be a continuation of the public hearing from May 16th to a special meeting on July 16th, which is Tuesday. And that is to be held at 6 p.m. at town campus in both meeting room A and C and via Zoom. We obviously encourage people to attend via Zoom since we expect large crowds.
But the air conditioning is
But the air conditioning is working.
functioning at town campus. It's quite comfortable and actually a little chilly. As they're adjusting everything in there. So both rooms will be available to seat the public, which actually holds more than this meeting room, which is why that setup was chosen.
Why that changed.
So
And it is hybrid.
yes, it is a hybrid meeting.
Whereas on July 18th, we have a meeting that was scheduled by Zoom only because we didn't know what was happening with the different spaces and air conditioning and HVAC systems. So for that meeting on July 18th, we have 24-15, 251 Boston Post Road.
With a continuation of the
Continuation
public hearing.
of the public hearing from June 20th, and then we also tabled the second half of that application 24-16 for 251 Boston Post Road. That is also scheduled for July 18th. Again, Zoom only. 24-22 New Road. This is a site plan review tabled to July 18th, via Zoom only. Aaron, add anything if you need to.
That's just a continuation from the last meeting.
That's a PDD.
Yes,
Yeah, the PDD.
the medical office building.
Yeah, great, maybe we can get that concluded. 24-19 plus a coastal site plan for 26 Nathan's Lane is also a public hearing scheduled for July 18th via Zoom. And then we are in receipt of 2224 85 Lantern Hill Road. This is a zone R1 lot revision.
This, you've seen this before as a lot line revision, and now there's a minor modification. So that will be, the recommendation for staff would be to allow the applicant to go through review with the health department for the B100A process, and table this to the July 18th meeting.
Okay. Do we need to make a motion for that, or we can just?
Sure.
Can I have a motion then that we table 22-24 65 Lantern Hill Road to the July 18th meeting? Motion. Moved. Second, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, July 18th via Zoom. Sounds like a busy night. But we'll be in our own spaces.
I gotta dress up.
Okay.
Put my avatar.
Then we have approval of meetings. Secretary Duza is not here, but if everyone had a chance to read through the minutes for June 20th, 2024 regular meeting. And if so, unless there's any corrections or edits, can I have a motion to accept the minutes for June 20th?
Couple of minor.
Yeah, you found something, sure.
I mean, how do I get these to John? Just.
You could just
Say
reference your changes that you note, and then those will be noted in this month's
Okay.
minutes. So just, yeah, Raquel will take those notes.
Okay, so on page 5, on the new road application, it says sanitary wastewater will be managed through and site subsurface disposal system. I'm assuming that should have been an on-site.
Yes,
Oh, right.
on-site subsurface
Okay.
sewage disposal
And then
system.
on page 6, on the same, this second paragraph is Snow, and you're all stating, maybe the comments should be from the Connecticut Water Company. It says comments water.
From Connecticut Water, yes.
Thanks for catching us.
Yes. Dumb little ones. So still.
No, they're great. Good to get corrected. Okay, so with those corrections then, all in favor of approving the minutes?
I'm abstaining.
You're saying you were not there? Okay.
Oh, I wasn't there. Never mind. I wasn't there. Sorry.
All right. Any further remarks? Nothing from me? None. Aaron, town planner? No. In that case, could I have a motion to adjourn? Happy Connor, a second? Andy? Any further discussion? All in favor? We adjourn at 8:29.